So I am going to jump in and talk a little bit about what I intended for the evening, which is really came to me from a conversation that I had recently with a dear friend, somebody I hadn't talked to in almost 12 years. And while we were connecting, I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I'm sure some of you had. When you're talking to somebody you haven't seen or talked to in a dozen years, it's a pretty surreal experience. It can almost be like time travel. Almost feel like there was a uh, updating that was happening, like a reconnecting or like a reintroducing to one another. And so as we were going through, it was like I was meeting her all over again, and she was meeting me all over again. And it was like we were also able to we met in the rooms of the Dharma, and it was like our Dharma practices were meeting each other all over again as well. And it was really nice to kind of have this reflection of time, because oftentimes, I don't know about anybody here, but, I have a tendency to be pretty critical on myself, to feel like there's, um, maybe I'm not making that much progress. I don't really feel the difference. It's kind of like if you look at a tree every single day, you don't see the growth that it's had. But if you come back to that tree 10 years later, you notice that it's got a bigger bark and lot more limbs, and is taking up a bigger space, and is just this beautiful growth that has happened. And that was what it was like. And we were sitting there, we were kind of revealing kind of where we were and what was going on. And it reminded me of a story and of a play that I had seen when I was, I think, 20 years old. Does anybody here know who Edward Albee is? Yeah, a couple nods. He wrote Who Was Afraid of Virginia Woolf. He also wrote a play called Three Tall Women. And spoiler, I'm going to totally tell you my version of that play as I remember it from being a 20-year-old. But basically, the first act, a young woman comes in, and she's probably in her 20s, and she's talking to the audience, mostly in monologue, but there's other things going along. I'm just going to skip all that other unimportant stuff. And basically, she's making the case as to why being so full of life and so vibrant, and with her whole journey in front of her, this is the best time of her life. This is the best era. Well, the curtain closes and act two comes out, and a woman comes out that's in her midlife, mid-stage life. Oh, and she's talking about, you know, all the mistakes she's made that are now behind her, all the drama she's gotten through, all the wisdom she has, and how she's able to carry that into the day, and how this is really the best era of her life. And as you've guessed it, Act Three, an elderly woman comes out, pretty frail, and she goes into her monologue. Now, what we find out at the end of the play is that all three women are the same woman. It's just different stages of her life. And the while I was speaking with this friend of mine, I had this moment where I was remembering how, as I'm talking about the Dharma, and I'm convinced that this is the best Dharma I've ever had. This is it. I'm having it right now. I'm in the middle of the best Dharma. My intentions are better. My wisdom's brighter, and all of these things. She kind of interrupted the conversation. She paused, and she had kind of like, I could feel a smile. And she says, "Oh, the Dharma is good in the beginning. The Dharma is good in the middle, and the Dharma is good in the end." And I swear it was like you could just feel it, like both of us just like, yeah, and there was this deep reflection of like, yeah, like, when we met, we were younger. and and we were sure, man, we were so lucky we had the Dharma, and we were, it just, it was like, it was good then too. And it was like very easy for me to want to kind of dismiss, like, oh, that was early Dharma. That doesn't count. Like this Dharma matters, and it was just a great pause to just kind of stop. So that's really my top topic tonight, was inspired by that conversation of like the Dharma is good in the beginning, the Dharma is good in the middle, and the Dharma is good in the end. And so there are several occasions where the Buddha says that in the suttas. And And I had to check whether or not it was really several. It's one of these things where it's like, legend has it, or so he says. And believe it or not, with a little bit of research, and I'm no scholar whatsoever, I can't recite every, sutta that it was. I can't tell you in what context, but I can tell you that it was several suttas that came up very easily when I was going through and searching and looking. And I kind of fact checked myself with Bill Fronsdale and a couple other people that are quite scholarly in the suttas. And it is actually something, a true statement that was made in several, many repeated occasions, usually when the Buddha was referring to these teachings as something worthwhile. So first, I want to just break down, what are we talking about when we say the Dharma? The Dharma is good. So most of us here, I assume, have some connection to the Dharma. But for those maybe who are new, or maybe just as kind of a way for us to just name it, we're going to talk about Dharma as, the teachings of the Buddha, the path, if you will. Um, we can call it Buddhist philosophy, we can call it freedom, ethical conduct, wisdom practices, heart practices. That when I'm saying Dharma, those are all the things that I'm saying. And yes, it's a catchphrase, like, yes, it's a catch-all, I should say, not a catchphrase. But yes, I am combining all of that into this overarching Dharma. But what I invite you, and what I think is so important, is like for each of us to know, what is the Dharma to us? What does that mean for you when I say Dharma? So, I'm going to use it in this context of the teachings, of the way, of the path, of the heart practices, of ethical living, of virtuous living, of concentration practices, heart practices. That's what I'm intending when I say this. So next we talk about good. So what is good? I've also seen the translations in these suttas as most excellent. Of course, the Valley Girl in me loves that, most excellent. Admirable, beneficial, empty, which I think is the Zen translation. But ultimately, really, if we go back to the Pali word in these suttas, it's kalyana. A lot of us know that as Kalyanamita, but Kalyana is also this quality of beautiful, lovely, charming. It can be good, virtuous, wholesome, excellent, fine, auspicious. It could be skilled or clever. Now, I like beautiful. It's what the Polytext Society and Gil Fronsdale both agree on. I also like it because it doesn't have that kind of evaluation of good and bad. And really, to be honest, I also like it because it sounds less like a commercial. Like, it's good, the Dharma's good to the last drop, or like the Dharma's good in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, and there's more. Like, shit, wow, like, like that's where my mind goes, is like this very like it's trying to sell me. It's good, it's good, you should do it, you should try it. Something about beautiful feels different. It's beautiful. If it acts a little bit, like I start to have a little reverence for it. It doesn't, I'm not measuring it, I'm not as critical with it. So for me, I am going to slip back and forth between this idea of it's good in the middle, and good in the end, and good in the beginning. But really, I think truly when I'm actually sitting and I'm contemplating it, beautiful, really feels like it captures better the essence. It also takes it out of the intellect and really puts it in this kind of place where it's not just knowing it, it's feeling it, it's embodying it. It's a different texture, it's a different field, it's a different essence. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that why I feel like kind of looking through these different vocabulary words, if you will, or these different adjectives, it's important to find what fits for you. What is the word that encompasses the meaning that the Buddha said all these years ago? So what is the beginning? What is the middle? What is the end? Um, I would love it if it could just be a timeline, that my mind would like that, but it's really not just a timeline. It can be, but I'm going to read a couple of things that, because I don't want to, I think they're really quite good at how it really contains what is the beginning, what is the middle, and what is the end. So beginning refers to the initial understanding or ethical conduct and the starting point of the practice. In the beginning, the Dharma offers guidance, principles, and practices that lead us away from suffering. It offers a more wholesome way of living, and it provides a framework for not only the ethical conduct, but also mental discipline and the development of wisdom. Okay, check. Sounds good. I'm into that. Middle encompasses the development of concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya, through meditation and study. In the middle, we deepen our practice and understanding. The Dharma continues to nourish and transform us. And the end signifies the fruition of the practice, the realization of liberation, and the end of suffering. In the end, the Dharma culminates in the realization of liberation and freedom from suffering. Okay. All right, those all sound like pretty promising. And or simply, as Steve Armstrong says, good in the beginning because of sila, good in the middle because of mindfulness, good in the end because of wisdom. So I don't want to miss the Brahma Viharas. I think this is really important. How do these fall in? And again, metta, I'm defining as goodwill. I really like that one. You can also have it loving kindness. The Brahma Vihara of karuna, which is compassion, mudita, which is gladness or joy, and equanimity, upekkha. So in the beginning, the heart practices motivate our strive towards ethical behavior. So we begin to develop goodwill for ourselves and others, and we become more committed to ethical behavior and those practices and that conduct, that sila. In the middle, the Brahma Viharas, all four of these come together and support our meditation practice. They encourage it. They make it more vibrant for us. We learn to use it with difficult mental states. They begin to refine our relationships. And in the end, it's just a natural expression of awakened heart. Really, to me, it feels like, yeah, uh, and again, it's just a personal thing. Like the Dharma is good in the middle, beginning, middle, and end because of the Brahma Viharas, really for me. So even just saying that, like goodwill is beautiful in the beginning, middle, and end. And compassion is good and beautiful in the beginning, middle, and end. Gladness, gladdening our heart, being happy for ourselves and glad for others. Like, yeah, like those qualities, like I can even, just even sensing that and talking about it, it's like, yeah, like just even getting to the point of enacting any of those places and then being in the middle of it, my heart filling with that. And then having had the experience of a gladdened heart. So the Brahma Viharas are both the path and the fruit of the practice. So we talked a little bit about so this is not a linear thing. So it can also be hearing a Dharma talk, sitting in meditation, an active renunciation, going on retreat. It can be our actual commitment to and sincere attempt at the Eightfold Path. It can be our taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, the Sangha. And really where I want to spend a couple moments is it can also be a gradual training of what we call the see for yourself. So it's often said like, oh, these are all the teachings, come see for yourself. And just the act of personalizing your own Dharma, getting to the point of like having integrity in what you believe, why you believe it. And this is the point that I was talking to with my dear friend. We were talking about how we have really now with decades of practice been able to like kind of come and see for ourselves what we think, what we believe, what works, what we wanted to abandon, what we hold on to, what are the practices we use, how we have evolved. I think there's a great quote, and it says, "You have the responsibility for what you believe." And in these Dharma rooms, it's like there are a bunch of us, and especially in a group like this, I would tend, with Vinny's group and others, there's a little bit of like, don't tell me what to believe, but maybe you could just tell me what to do. It's like this Dharma is like, no, like find out for yourself. Like that's the richness of it and the beauty of it in the beginning and the beauty of it in the middle of it and the beauty of it towards the end. Um, so what it the one thing I do find myself um, more challenged with is what is the end? So I'm just gonna start with a short personal reflection of like looking at more like a timeline, kind of like what my Dharma practice has been linear wise. And there's a saying of the Dharma is good wherever and however it finds you. And when I start to think about my own kind of linear experience or my timeline with the Dharma, it also kind of corresponds, right? Like with my own age, I'm middle aged now. Um, and it is a little naive for me to think that I have guaranteed an little elderly lady that I get to turn into. Like I may not make it that far, I don't know what's going to happen tonight, tomorrow. It might be 16 years, it could be 17 years from now, it can be 30 years from now. And like we were talking about earlier tonight of like, I'm sure there's many people that came on tonight and didn't think that Ralph was at the end. Maybe we would have put him smack in the middle if we were looking at it through a timeline. And for me, one of the things that I have had the luck of is, death has been a great teacher of impermanence. And it has also been a source of zeal. And I like the word zeal towards my practice and reminding me, like, don't squander, like, really invest in my practice, because I don't know if I'm in the beginning, middle, or end of my timeline. I was really fortunate that I was actually introduced to the Dharma when I was 5 years old. I lived in a pretty chaotic life, and my mom came home with this beautiful box and some incense, and I really loved the ritual of it, and I loved the ornateness of the artwork. It was something that I hadn't seen until then. I like the smells of the incense. I like the way that there was some stillness, and in my life and in my energy, in the energy in our household, there wasn't a lot of stillness. And I remember that was tactile for me. I could feel it. It was a beautiful thing that I remember. I was again reintroduced in the throes of active addiction as a teenager. Um, and I remember being able to see the Dalai Lama in person and sitting through some of his talks. And, most of it was really um, going over my head intellectually, but something was happening in my heart. There was a seed that was being planted of the potentiality of what maybe the uh, joy would look like or reduction of suffering could possibly be. It felt out of reach, but I could see it on them, feel it on them. I could believe that it was a beautiful quality. I got sober at 18, and I was introduced to ethical behavior and ethical conduct through 12-step programs. And I really believe that that was a beginning of what it looked like to have the joy of skillful behavior and learning blamelessness. In my 20s, I started learning meditation. And then in my late 20s, later 20s, I really began to have a sincere practice, dedicated Dharma practice. So notice I talk different a little bit. For me, I talk about being introduced to Buddhism. I talk about being introduced to Buddhist. I talk about being introduced to meditation, but I also distinguish having a Dharma practice. For me, those are different evolutions. And for me, the Dharma practice, I could see the beauty in the Buddhism and in the Buddhist and in the meditation, but I could encompass, embody the beauty of the Dharma. So the mystery, right, of what is the end of the Dharma? Is it the end of our sit period? Is it when the timer goes off? Is it when we finish that book? Is it when I stop talking tonight? When we stop meditating? Is there an actual capacity that my heart is going to reach in metta? And I just not, this is just going to be the end. It just can't go any farther. We're going to just finally become completely mindful, just to the end of mindfulness. I'm going to arrive to the point where I'm just at the end of the mindfulness. I mean, of course, I'm kind of joking a little bit with this, but it's also, it's like, it's a mystery. I don't know. Maybe there's a limit in which my little heart can hold, you know? I don't suspect there is. So again, it points us back to this idea of liberation. And liberation can be challenging, can be a challenging concept for us to start to think about. I'm not going to go, I'm just noticing the time and I'm just kind of reevaluating. I'm not going to go fully into the ideas of liberation. I think that's something really personal that each of us need to kind of get into. I want to offer a couple of ideas of the ways that I've interpreted it. Definitely feel like postponing liberation to a destination would be doing myself a disservice. But I don't know that to be true. I haven't arrived there yet. But I love the idea of waking up to a moment, waking up to my heart, waking up to a relationship. I love the idea of being liberated from suffering in a particular circumstance, in a particular situation, in a particular moment, about a particular thing. I do believe that there's been a shedding over the years, a softening, a reduction of the way that I am pushed and pulled through my suffering and held ransom to my mind and taken hostage. I mentioned that the impermanence and death have been great teachers for me. So in my 30s, I became a mother. In my 40s, I also became a mom again. It's harder in my 40s than in my 30s. And recently, I lost my mom and I also lost my dad within a year of each other. And I decided that would be a great time to start chaplaincy and start working with people that are at the end of their life. And it's been an integral practice for me right now, really looking through the lens of what is the end, and what do I want it to be like at the end. So there's the timeline that is unknown and is a mystery, and I am probably not going to get to know. But there are some things that I can do. There are some ways that I can be, and there are some things like the Dharma that I can hold beautiful in my life. And that has been a way in which I am trying to incorporate this idea of the Dharma being beautiful at the end. And how do I want to influence that? How can I influence that? What intentions can I hold on a daily basis? What priorities can I have that make it that I am really living in the beauty of what might be the end, the end of that moment, the end of that call, that end of that experience, the end of my life, the end of somebody whom I love's life. And so that has kept me pretty close to my practice. And I'm really grateful for that. I feel a real, I feel like it's one of the ways in which impermanence has become not a teacher of like you know, a great teacher, you better watch out, but like a teacher of enthusiasm, a teacher, a cultivation of willingness, of efforting in those ways that are beautiful. And beautiful isn't always easy. Sometimes beautiful is really hard and sticky and difficult and challenging, but it's so worthwhile. And that's where some of the greatest fruit and nectar is. Um, so my last 2 points here on my page here is Ajahn Suchito says, it's an open end. That's why it's beautiful. And I like that. And I told you about the play, The Three Tall Women. And I told you that at the end, the eldest lady comes out and she has a monologue. But what I didn't tell you is I didn't tell you the last lines of that play. And she says, that's the happiest moment when it's all done, when we stop, when we can stop. So I don't have a perfect definition of what liberation is, but it feels like that line of when we can stop touches a little bit of that essence of what it might be to be liberated through a moment of experience in this moment or the next. So with that, I am going to end my Dharma talk.